On the 9th of November 2024, Rema dropped what I'll consider to be the sickest snippet in contemporary Afrobeats history. On his Instagram page, he casually dropped this madness.
Baby, some money. You know, say you match my steez. You know I'm a G. Shawty, I'm always keep it real. I know they for too much whining, they for too much whining.
On his IG alone, this post has over 580,000 likes and over 32,000 comments. And with most people asking, when are you going to drop this banger?
Play this record because this nigga is crazy not having this out. I don't know if it's a sample clearance thing or what, but Rema is bugging. Please, 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 please put that record out, #1.
The entire Afrobeats internet space was on fire. Twitter was doing their thing, tweeting, and on TikTok, everybody doing their own little remixes and different dances. I mean, at that time, it'd been barely 3-4 months since he dropped his album, the album that we're still digesting. I mean, it wasn't just the beats or the iconic delivery and flow that Rema was using. Specifically, what stood out for many people was the Sade vocals. I mean, was this about to be the collaboration of the decade? The queen herself with the prince of Afrobeats. And everybody expected that in normal Afrobeats fashion, by the following Friday, the full track would drop. But tell me why it's been 2 whole months and that record is still nowhere to be found on the streaming platforms. Well, that's why I make this video. I have a theory as to why this record may probably never be dropped. We may never get to hear the full version of this song. And that theory involves 2 music industry siblings. One's name starts with a S, while the other one's name starts with an I. And these 2, even though they are very essential in the music industry these days, at the same time, they could be very, very, very frustrating. I'm going to explain my theory, but before I continue, I'm going to drop a quick disclaimer. Just to make it clear, none of the information that I give you in this video comes directly from Maven Records or its executives. As a matter of fact, I intentionally steered clear of that just to let my imaginations run wild. So let me state it, this is pure speculation. You remember the siblings that I talked about earlier? Let's bring them back now into the picture. That Sade voice that you hear on the record is a sample of an original Sade Adu record from 1985. The original song is titled Is It a Crime? On a classic album titled Promise. And so that record was sampled on Rema's new snippet, and so that makes sampling the first sibling that I talked about. Basically, sampling is when you pick a portion of an already existing song and you put it in a new song and then you integrate it to make a fresh record, which is what Rema did. Kind of like what Burna Boy did with Last Last when he sampled Tony Braxton's He Wasn't Man Enough. On the other hand though, Interpolation, even though it's very similar, it's slightly different. Rather than picking the original song and putting it in a new record, you replay the composition from the original song. So rather than picking the vocals, you could re-sing the same melody and lyrics that Sade sang. Essentially, you're recreating the melody, the lyrics, or just the rhythm of the song. And when you hear sampling and interpolation done right, just as Rema did it, is mad. Only problem is that the process of clearing samples and interpolation sometimes can be very tricky. And naturally, people would assume that to get a clearance, it would just be to send an email or send a text to Sade and she's gonna be like, oh yeah, sure, it's cool. But that's not entirely true. Most times it's way more than that. Most times you need approval from several people. For example, to clear this Sade record, you need the approval of all the songwriters, which would include Sade Adu herself, Andrew Hill, and a third songwriter called Stott Matthew Mann. And then let's not forget the producers, because they're also composers on this record, and so all of them will also give their permission. if there's more than one producer. And oh yeah, I almost forgot, you need the label's permission as well, and then the publishers. Not just one publisher, but if all of the songwriters publish through different publishers, you need the permission of all of them. There are contracts involved, there are terms in the contract that need to be agreed by all of the parties. Now imagine you're getting permission from 10 different people and 2 different companies, and if only one person disagrees, you won't be able to use the record, unfortunately. Like, it's game over, there's nothing you can do. However, there are some exceptions to that though. There have been situations where artists and writers have gotten their song licensed without their approval. An example would be when Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog. It was said that Michael would go on to license this catalog in ways that the Beatles were not happy with because they didn't give approval. But then that's because he bought the catalog. It's crazy. There are also other reasons why artists may decide that they don't want to license their works. Some artists have such sentimental connection to their songs that they're like, I want to keep the artistic purity, I want to keep it how it was originally, and so I don't want to give a permission to use my record, because to some people it's deeper than just what it is to other people. Maybe the person wrote the song about someone that they really loved and the person passed, who knows, or maybe the creative space that they were in at the time when they were creating it was just one of those ones where it's like, this record, I want it to be like this, and I don't want to ever touch it. And don't get me wrong, that does not mean that the new record that samples the initial record, it doesn't mean it's a bad record. Creatives can just be that way. Just be like, man, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, and there's not much you can do. Sometimes there are also situations where when an artist has passed and their estate decide, don't want to give you the rights to use this record. So the whole thing can be complex. It's not a one-way situation, and it's also very important to appreciate when you hear a sample, especially when it's a sample from a legendary, when it's like a sample of a classic song. And there's another theory. You remember after the snippet dropped, there was like a version that sounded like J-Hus was recording, and people were like, maybe that would be a feature. And so I'm thinking, who knows, maybe it's a feature that we're waiting for, and that's why it's just been long. I don't know, it could be that. Or maybe Rema is just simply just playing the waiting game. He's like, yeah, I've given you guys Ozeba, I've given you guys Macham, I've given you guys hey. So we will continue enjoying that while I hold this one, and maybe he will then drop it on his next project. I don't know, man. I'm just, like I said, I'm just speculating. But basically, these are some of the things that I just sit down and think about sometimes and just ponder. What could it be? What could the reason be? Why did this person do this? I'm not gonna lie to you, it's frustrating, because someone like me now, every time I want to hear the song, I have to go to Rema's page, to his Instagram page, to go and be reloading it. We need the full track. So let me know in the comments what your own speculation is. What do you think the reason behind this delay is? Do you think we're still going to get this record, or do you think we should just move on, just forget about it? If you don't get it, forget about it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know ASAP. Okay, let's do this.